So I am an alum of the EDP, and yet here I am working tonight. So you just can't stay away from these people, Andrew. But it's been a good ride. I've been here since 2012, just short of 10 years. And what fun we've had. Lots of whiskey, lots of laughs, and lots of hard work. And so tonight we're going to chat a bit about the history of the EDP and also share some lessons and thoughts from people other than Andrew. As you know, Andrew doesn't talk for short periods of time. So I feel very comfortable coming right up close and telling him to shut up. And then we have some politicians here tonight, and likewise, I have no problem telling you to zip it up either. Especially those who are younger than me. So, okay, flattery will get you everywhere. Right, so first up, I would like to invite the one female panelist here this evening, and she's been name-checked earlier on, Lebo. Lebo, we have yet to meet. I'm sorry we haven't met before this, but would you like to come up, please? Yes. So I think Jill... Oh, no! Just check yourself. Have you been mic'd up? Yeah. Okay, so the glasses are going to come out, so I am older than you. So, Jill, you've given an introduction to Lebo, right?
I think, okay, that works.
We on?
Okay.
It works.
All right.
So why don't you have a seat? This is my seat, so you sit anywhere else.
Okay.
Right next to me, good. So Lebo, you've heard, is from Harambee, and Harambee also believes very strongly in partnerships. And so it's really nice tonight to have someone with a different, who believes in similar values as the EDP does, but a different perspective, and also a national perspective. And Lebo is responsible for what she's called the culture officer?
Chief Culture Officer.
Chief Culture Officer. And culture is so important. At the EDP, we always said it's not what you do, but how you do it. So I'm really glad to have you here with us on the panel today. And then the very young mayor of Cape Town, Geordin, welcome. We haven't met. Ooh, you see what happens when we meet. Magic. Explosive. So nice to have you here with us tonight, Geordin. And Geordin and his team are facing some really pressing challenges. Can you just ask the people to shush over there, please? Thank you. You know, there's housing, there's aging infrastructure that it's currently really, I'm sure sitting on top of your agenda. But then we've got the future of climate change. We've already had a drought, and these are things that I believe will require collaboration, us all to work together to solve them. We can't just leave it up to politicians or officials. So tonight we're going to, get some of your opinions and thoughts too. So welcome to the panel.
Thank you. So I'm going to sit over there.
You can sit wherever you like.
Hello, Lebo.
Hi.
Nice
And
nice
then
to meet you.
our old friend Alan. Well, not our old friend. Alan?
So you got the young one and the old one.
He's young, but he's an old friend.
Okay.
And Alan, tonight you're wearing two hats. You're here as the Premier of the Western Cape. The City of Cape Town and the province have been firm supporters and funders of the EDP over these past 10 years. Andrew spoke about your coffee at, what's that place? Doppio Zero, which is now no more. But I think your other hat for me is more important tonight, because you were there at day zero. You were there at inception, conception, at the launch. You've been our firm friend over the 10 years, and all the many hats you wore as the MEC for economic opportunities, as head of Treasury, or not head of, Minister of the Treasury, and now as the Premier. Alan has always been there for us. And the thing I like best about Alan is that he builds relationships. And the thing that signifies relationship to me is a good hug. And Alan is a great hugger. So if you haven't had a hug from him tonight, get one. And may I just add, hug outside, eh? COVID, outside. Gotta just go to, do a COVID thing. All these unmasked people around me, yeah? And then last but not least, Andrew, who has been one of the founding forefathers or fathers or whatever you want to call them, and has been here since the beginning. So we've got the two OGs over here. And then the cool kids over here.
Yes, we're getting it tonight.
So let me sit on my
my
director's chair. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Alan. And Andrew has spoken a bit about those early days, way back in 2010?
2010.
Yeah. I remember you guys took that trip to London and met with Greg Clark. So I'd like to ask you, Alan, why did you think the Western Cape needed something different? There were many other organizations at the time. So what was it that kind of put the sparkle in your eye, around partnering or partnerships?
All right. I think, as Andrew said, I'd seen and witnessed the work that had been done in the Cape Town Partnership. And it was amazing to see how government and private sector could come together and do amazing things. And at that stage, I think you'd just come back from Boston, or you were telling people in America how to do partnerships. That was pretty good. And then, sorry, where's the new American? Got to be careful what you say in this room, because, I mean, you'd really done some great stuff there. And I'd just been given this job of treasury and finance on the one side, but the economic opportunities or economic development in those days on the other side. And so I was applying my mind to our ecosystem of the economy. And there's one thing that was a big problem then. I'm going to tell you right now, it's still a big problem, and that's called organized business. It's a real oxymoron. And so you had business on the one side, and they were really fragmented. And I mean, it's difficult to get business to get all into one space. And government, and get business and government to really speak to each other. And then, of course, I think the real thing with the spheres of government, who really were, miles apart from each other. We'd also just taken over, so it was a political change at the province. We had a sort of coalition at the city which had formed a majority government, but it wasn't an easy ecosystem and an easy environment. And I thought that, looking at the partnership that you'd build, how do we bring all of this together? I'll never forget one of those early, while we were still doing the Greg Clark stuff, and we got CEOs of companies together at the CTICC. I don't think we've ever seen, ever since then again, so many CEOs in one room saying, yes, let's actually pull this thing together. So it was about that. It was about this divided system. And we really had to find ways in which we could collaborate, we could work together. And that was the idea, and that was where it started.
So Alan, 10 years on, what are the big challenges that the Western Cape government is facing that requires collaboration? And specifically, the role of an intermediary like the EDP. What does it bring to the table?
So I think that you always need a convener, right? You always need a convener, especially when there's fractious partnerships, because you don't get together ordinarily around a table or even pick up the phone to talk to each other. Often, Andrew would put together the platform and you'd arrive and you'd be sitting next to someone who you would normally not ever pick up the phone to. And at the end of the day, you're talking to each other and looking for solutions. So I don't think it's changed since then, but I think the journey has definitely taught us a lot. I think about partnerships. I also think about the EDP. And of course, being invited here tonight, I thought about the journey as Andrew also spoke about that journey. And the one thing that really stands out for me is every time there's a crisis, guess who they phone? Because you have a look at this book. This is an amazing little book that has just been put together. Have a look, probably it's near the back. There we go. It talks about each year and the journey. And so whether it was a drought, or an agricultural protest and a divisive agricultural system with farm worker strikes, whether it was feeding people, as you said, every time there was a crisis, the day zero crisis, there was Andrew and there was this team at the EDP just pulling all the players together, playing that catalytic role. And so I can't see that the next crisis would not pick up the phone and say, guys, I don't know if Andrew will still be there. The two of us might be at Evergreen by then. But at least you could trust the system by calling them. I also thought about it. And DG, you are here, and there's a number of Treasury officials here tonight. And another big change that we brought about in government is when we were going through our budget processes. Now, budget processes in government is a closed process where you get together each department and you talk about the next year. Well, guess what? The EDP sat in our budget process. In the beginning, people were saying, who are they? What are they doing here? But it was amazing because they could then start to pull together and advise and say, hang on a second, in that department, something else was happening, and start to join the dots. So when we didn't realize what the EDP was going to do to what it is today, I've got no doubt that partnerships work. If you can get the collaboration to work, you make massive differences. And whether it's this kind of collaboration, I think of another partnership, and that's, Joe, the airlift. That was a real partnership of national government, provincial government, local government, international players. As soon as you get the collaboration around the table, great things happen. So I've got no doubt that where we've evolved to through the EDP and the help that the EDP have given us as one of the partners in enabling an ecosystem that has done amazing things. It really has. In all of those crisis times, really pulled together this region and all of its diversity to find a solution.
Thanks, Alan. So just to keep you on your toes, I might just shout out to any of you here to answer something, so best you listen. So right in front of me over here, I see two gentlemen who've been very instrumental in our, in the past 10 years, the former DG and the current DG. So I'd like to ask you, Harry, let me call on you. I know you're not shy to have a word or two. Alan mentioned, often the challenges working across the spheres of government. So why do you think it's so important? Is there a roving mic? Yeah. Why do you think it's so important for the spheres of government specifically to collaborate? And I remember, Andrew, when we started out working with province, we said that we have to, before we can go outside, we have to look internally and start to learn to collaborate and partner with each other. Because often we work in silos as departments, the city, the province, national departments. So would you like to comment on that?
I mean, thanks and welcome to everyone. I mean, I commented earlier, and I mean, again, Andrew, congratulations to you and the team for, I think, putting together wonderful work through the EDP. I mean, this goes back to the years, Andrew, probably 2010, 2011, I think, as Premier's indicated, the time when many of our processes were closed up. And we decided to pull the EDP closer because we realized that one institution don't know everything and one institution can't pull together everything. And the EDP was the glue that kept everything together. And I mean, Andrew, you and I mean, everyone in the team can remember the work that we did under the integrated management plan. Suddenly, you run an entire government process just on one department, but 3-4 departments working together. And guess what? We even pulled the planning people in through environmental affairs. We pulled in the guys in local government. We pulled in the then DG Brent Gerber through the Department of the Premier. And then as a collective, we could think about the stuff, strategize on what was best for the citizen. And at the end of the day, what we achieved was not just partners within government, but I mean, Andrew, I remember the time when we went out to Kailicha, when we went out to the municipalities. In fact, the work didn't stop at 7 and 15 Wells Street. Andrew and the team actually participated in all the engagements we had with the municipalities. I mean, the team that's here tonight will remember those days. And I mean, we've never seen it in the past. And I'm sure I mean, you can reflect on it, but that really laid the basis for collective planning, what we've got today, Mayor. You know, it laid the basis for integrated management, everything aimed at the citizen. And the platform, Andrew, that you and the team laid provides the springboard or the trampoline to us today to just take it further. So today, I mean, the joint work we're doing, particularly with the city and some of the other municipalities, will take us further to improve the lives of the citizens. So once again, thank you, Andrew, to you and the team.
Thanks, Harry. I must say, my first introduction to government was with the EDP, and one thing you learn a lot of acronyms, LG, MTech, what was it? All those MTechy things and all sorts of committees that we had to go to. But it was fun, being on the road with the officials. Geordin, I spoke earlier about the challenges facing the city, and I wanted to hear from you how you think collaborative approach will help the city, both collaborating with other spheres of government, with citizens, with the private sector, with academia, all represented here tonight. How's that going to help us right now and in the future?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. It's great to be here and to be supportive of this event. Congrats, of course, to the EDP. I've been in government for about 5 months now, so a relative newcomer. But I've already been struck by a couple of things that I think are relevant to your question, and I'll just share these thoughts kind of as they come. Firstly, I think there's far too much of thinking that government has all the answers and always the best answer, and very often that's not the case. So I think you've got to try to engender a culture or an attitude of humility that starts with figuring out where you can get the best answer, and having an attitude in policy making and in government that says part of our role is not starting off with having the best answer, but saying who are the partners that we can go to, what are the connections that we can make to make sure we end up with the best answer. And I see that a lot. There's some weird kind of tensions between government departments and between our guys, and it's all very weird. I'm still trying to figure that out.
So after 4 months, you've noted that already.
Yeah. And we got to, I think what I love about working with Alan is that we are both just kind of relentlessly breaking that down. And I'll just tell one funny story. You were talking about these MTechy things. And when I was like I can't remember, Alan, it was like a day or two after I was elected, Alan called us to one of these MTechy things. And I was leaving my office out the mayor's office, and I was walking past a senior city staff member who said, "Oh, you're going off to see the opposition."
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a lot of that kind of work and that partnership and collaboration that we got to build. And then finally, I would just say the problems are so difficult that you would be crazy to argue that government alone could solve it. These things are extremely complex, whether it be what Andrew was mentioning about trying to clean up Cape Town's water ecosystems, cleaning up the city itself, the housing space, incredibly complex and divisive. There's no way that you can approach those problems thinking that you've got a monopoly on the truth or a monopoly on good ideas. If you approach those problems with that attitude, you're on a hiding to nothing.
So as the newly minted mayor, what's 4 months?
5.
5. Okay. Well, I'm expecting.
Yeah.
I'm deeply experienced.
Yeah. As a leader, because you're the mayor of this big city, you and Alan as political leaders in this space, what is the role of leadership when you're looking at collaborative problem solving? Both of your own, and then also from other sectors like the private sector or civil society, especially. I think everyone's quite fractured at the moment. So what is your approach going to be to being a leader in this space?
I think building on what I've just said, most of what I try to do every day is about organizational culture. And so, it was you're the head of culture. I'm going to speak to you after.
She's listening to you. She's going to
Yeah.
mark you out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 33,000 staff members. I think you've got much more than double that. And so, again, it would be arrogant of either of us to think that what we just because something's written in a document or because we've said something in a speech, it's going to just happen through the organization. And so I try to spend a lot of time with our senior management and middle management in the organization, just constantly reinforcing the kind of culture change that I just spoke about in the earlier answer, to say we can't solve these problems alone. We've got to think outside of the box and go outside of the organization to look for better answers and better evidence and the best policy. That we've got to have an attitude of humility. We do sometimes mess up, very, very occasionally, but we do sometimes do that. And so that kind of culture change, and I was speaking to someone who works with the city at probably many more levels than I do just before we started, to get a feel for whether any of that stuff is going down through the organization. That's always really interesting to me. Is what's going in at the top, is it actually generating the culture change that we need? And I think so much of what we can do together is actually just that, focus relentlessly on values and culture.
Thank you. So, Lebo, what do you say about that answer? What has been your experience as the Chief Culture Officer? And comment a bit about understanding the role of leadership, the culture of an organization. What does it look like? What is the how? What do you have to see visibly to know that there's been a shift in culture?
Culture is every time I'm asked this, I never answer it the same way. It's like, who's God, you know? I never have the same answer. And
God is a she.
But I think that it is the smell, I call it the smell of the place. And it's invisible, but like there are many levers that I think contribute to shifting culture. So leadership for me is number one. I think that role modeling, having leaders in an organization that not only just kind of like say, but also do, and who can really just emulate what they're talking about. So people, there's so many buzzwords also. People who can walk the talk, they say, and so I think that's important. Then there's an issue of rituals. I think it's like about like the things that you do on a regular basis. I think for me, I think it's like you've got to be fit for the game that you want to be in, and and we've all got to practice. Like we've got to build muscles, and not everything comes easily. I think we've been just thinking about this idea of informality in government spaces and everyone addressing each other first names. I feel like things like that take practice and take quite a while. But I think that if I look at Harambee, I think there's like a certain philosophy that we just started with from day one, where we knew that it takes a village to solve youth unemployment. It takes more than one entity to do so. And I think that this idea of that there is no way that you can solve this issue, no one entity can solve a big issue such as youth unemployment by themselves, is core to how you come at the problem. And so, we've got a saying that do not fall in, don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem, right? And I feel like that's so important in order to be able to be agile, to move around, because you are not holding on to what you think is right or what the one truth. because I think that there aren't single truths in this game. And I think that there aren't single smart ideas also in the game. And it's about how do you then bring everyone together to be able to see that. And rituals are important. So at Harambee, we've got a solutions exchange program or session conference that we do once a year at Spear. It's been a while. The pandemic affected us, but I mean, I think this is where we have like civil society come together, business, government, and people sitting in a room who wouldn't normally come together, sitting in a room to think about a problem that's just bigger than the individual. So it's, I think it's active. I really like some of the lessons from the EDP about partnering, that it's a verb and not a noun, because I feel like it's about everyday action. And I think like, you know, a runner getting ready for a race, you've got to get fit. And I think it's about like being active. And so it's a very, I find it amazing also what makes it different, because it's like the little things. It is about like being able to have coffee with the people that you don't like, you know, necessarily work with on a daily basis. It is about, you know, just like ways of communicating. I think like how you design your space. Does it actually say like we are collaborative? So there's a lot that starts also at home. Another lesson I love from EDP, that partnering starts at home, partnership starts at home, and how you relate with each other before you even like start engaging with others. So those have just been some of like mine. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, we have the village right here, don't we?
We've got the village, and hopefully they're not attached to their solutions.
I love that idea.
And we can fall in love with a problem and build solutions that are, I think, I mean, when we think about young people at Harambee, that there are so many different systems that affect, that are in the labor market and that affect young people's ability to find employment. And it's time that we start to organize ourselves around the young people, in our case, and not, I think, make the young people run around us and try and figure out where to go. So I think having that at the center and thinking about your problem at the center and then organizing everyone around it is very powerful.
Thanks, Lebo. Don't fall in love with the solution.
Very good.
Andrew, what solution have you fallen out of love with?
Well, it's interesting. When we started the EDP, the idea was to get everyone in the Western Cape economy together in a single partnership for the Western Cape economy. We had 130 members, and it took us about 6 months to realize that it didn't work, that we'd been going down the wrong road. Because what we learned quite quickly is that there are so many different interests and competing interests in the system that one partnering solution didn't fit everyone. In business, in government, different spheres of government, and certainly in civil society and communities. And that, so we quickly fell out of love with that as a goal. And that, we had put it in our business plan. And when you're dealing with public money and government funding, how do you change your business plan, Harry, and not run into trouble with auditor generals and things like that?
Indicators.
But it means that you've got to learn by doing and change if something's not working. And the idea of a single partnership for the whole region didn't work. And so what we learned out of that is one of our lessons is focus on partnering solutions in a more discrete and less abstract way, and go down to where the problem is, and it's either an area-based partnering solution at different scales or an issue-based partnering solution around different themes like water or energy or waste or safety or whatever it is. And that became far more effective. But we had to learn that the hard way.
I liked your idea, Lebo, about the solutions exchange, or what do you call it? You know, often you hear officials saying that it's quite difficult to do this with civil society or even our citizens, because we've got all these very rigid processes like the IDP and the blah, 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 and da-da-da. And how do you get around that to actually bring people together? And who represents society? Who represents business, as you mentioned earlier? So this idea of all of society, it sounds good, but you know, how do you get it to work? Sithole, welcome. I'm going to jump on you now.
Yeah.
I've just read this article about the state of cities, and you know, you spoke about the need for a different approach, especially in our cities. So do you want to comment on that? The difficulty often, you know, to get things going when you're dealing with not just the interpersonal cultural stuff, but the culture of planning and doing things is so different in academia and civil society, in business, and then of course in government, who often has to drive this. So would you like to just, you know, perhaps just end off our little discussion here with a thought?
No, thanks very much. I didn't expect that, so I was quite shocked.
I told you to beware.
But I think firstly, it's quite important to congratulate the entire EDP team and the entire Western Cape community around this. So Andrew, by the way, is guilty of having established the South African Cities Network 20 years ago, and then came to Cape Town, working on the Cape Town Partnership and the EDP. I'm not sure what's next, right? But I think part and parcel of what perhaps we also need to talk about, because I think this is very much at a meso level. I think what we also need to talk about is partnerships at a macro level, right? So how do we get, and from our point of view, how do we get all the cities to work together to partner around the economy? Right? And I think it's a difficult thing for us to want to achieve, but it's something that we're going to have to do. The one thing that we're speaking about now in this state of the cities is the fact that we have just not managed to cooperate, just as the public sector. Forget trying to include other stakeholders such as the business sector, and how easily it is that we just tend to forget that there's something called civil society, and you think about them last. And I think it's quite something that is important for us to learn. I mean, Lebo talks about us having to create crawls around youth instead of youth crawling around us. You know, those kinds of strategies I think are quite important. So the principles are the same across the length and the breadth of the country. But yeah, it's a tough job. And good luck, Geordin, in your 5 months as well.
But does it give you hope to have the caliber of people here on the platform today?
No, certainly. I mean, you wish this is something that could be customized, you know, across various parts of the country, obviously taking into account the dynamics and the differences that are there in different parts of the country, and perhaps the world for that matter. Thanks.
Thank you. Jill, how are we doing for time?
We're running over.
Okay. So I was going to ask Ralph Hammond for a comment, but you know, when you ask an academic to give you a comment, they give you like this whole thesis, and it might just. But Ralph, I know that you were quite instrumental as well. Hey? Over time. Okay, Ralph's going to talk to you later.